Called to order, Town of Basalt Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Tuesday, February 7th, 2023.
All right. Bill Marin,
Yo.
Kyle Oberketter,
Here.
Eric Vozick is absent, Rob Levitt,
Yes.
Katie Hirschfield, Cindy Hirschfield. Apologies, I skipped it all at once.
I'm here.
Thank you. And Katie Hostetler.
Here.
Great. We have a quorum.
Okay, great. Let's look at the minutes from December 6th, 2022. Does anybody have any changes, additions to make?
Just a spelling of my name in the last sentence.
Okay. Anything else? Nope. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll approve with the
Okay.
name correction.
Name correction? Good.
Yeah.
We have a second? Second. We have first, we have second. All in favor?
I'm going to abstain since I was not here.
Yeah, fair enough. All right.
All righty. Presentation and courtesy referral on sustainable building regulation amendments. Sarah.
Hello. All right. I understand about name, name misspelling, Cindy. I can appreciate that. So yeah, I'm here tonight to present to you some information regarding our sustainable building regulations, as well as proposed amendments that will be going forward next week to Town Council. We are asking the P&Z to provide a courtesy recommendation, referral rather, to the Town Council regarding the amendments as noted earlier that are highlighted in yellow in your packet. So since Basalt began tracking its carbon emissions in 2014, buildings have remained the greatest contributor to Basalt's greenhouse gas emissions. And in an effort to reduce that impact, Basalt adopted its first round of sustainable building regulations, or SBRs, in 2015. They were again amended in 2018. They had some more significant amendments recently in 2022. And we are again talking about newly proposed amendments that will be taking place, 2023 amendments next week. So I was going to provide just some discussion of what are the SBRs, what do they do, provide an overview of the amendments that were adopted by Council in 2022, just ones that are more significant, the roadmap to net zero development, introduce the P&Z to the proposed 2023 amendments, and we can open for discussion after that. So if you can, you're on that slide, okay. So our sustainable building regulations, or SBRs, they're part of a system of codes that work together. They build on each other to address items that are related to development, whether residential or commercial. So you're probably familiar with the International Building Code, International Energy Code. If you are not, just to let you know, the Basalt is operating currently under the 2015 I codes. The 2021 I codes are under consideration and actually will be going to Council in the very near future as well. So the IBC, or the International Building Code, that's the foundation of the codes. This addresses items related to public health and safety. It's kind of our big foundational code. The IECC, or the Energy Code, addresses aspects related to energy uses in commercial and residential development. We're talking things like heating, ventilation, lighting, water heating, and power usage for the building systems, as well as appliances. Basalt, as I said, is currently under the 2015 I codes. The sustainable building regs up there at the top of our pyramid, they are Basalt specific. They relate directly to Basalt's climate action as well as efficiency goals. They address items that are above the more general I codes, such as waste reduction methods, proximity of a development to transit systems, renewable energy systems, water use, indoor air quality, and much more. They are applicable to residential and commercial, as well as remodels and additions that meet a certain threshold. We go to the next slide. So I want to just give you an overview of some of the more significant amendments that were adopted by Town Council in 2022. These were adopted in September. They took effect mid-October. And they really did highlight Basalt's commitment to reducing its carbon footprint as well as energy efficiency measures. So some of these significant amendments include the on-site renewable requirements. So new residential is required to install solar. They also are required to have a home energy rating system score, or HERS score, for improved efficiency. So we're really trying to get at like a tighter footprint, you know, some things that are more efficient. And that was going from what the code requires is a score of 54 to 40 or 45, depending on the project. On-site solar is required with 3 watts of a photovoltaic equivalent. This can be reduced to 2 watts of the photovoltaic equivalent, or PVE as we're calling it, for an all-electric building. We're trying to incentivize that all-electric. For commercial and multifamily, we went from a current, or what used to be a 2% on-site solar requirement to 25% solar requirement. And this is something we're starting to see more and more throughout, you know, our region, our state, as well as the country. The all-electric construction can be reduced to a 15% on-site requirement, again, incentivizing that all-electric building. And 40% of a roof area is needs to be dedicated as solar-ready space. Regarding beneficial electrification and storage, all systems have to be pre-wired so that they can have an easy transition to electric. So you can start off with a gas appliance, has to be able to transition. And we're talking like hot water heaters, clothes dryers, HVAC systems, all those kind of things. And there's also requirements for such things as just like your breaker box. It has to be correctly sized. It has to have space reserved for future electrical use. So we're really planning ahead towards electrification. Similarly, buildings must be designed to be battery ready if it's not already included within the construction. So there's been changes to off-street parking. We have code requirements, as you all know, per project, you know, what it's going to require for off-street parking. And then that code has been updated to include requirements for electric vehicle parking spaces within that number of required parking spaces. Again, it's project dependent, so it can shift depending on how many spaces the code would require. It also requires EV or electric vehicle ready spaces, so that infrastructure needs to be put in place to accommodate electric vehicle charger into the future. Another topic is commercial benchmarking. So this has been required by the state as of September 6, 2021 for all commercial buildings that are 50,000 square feet or larger. And with our new adoption of the 2022 SBRs, the requirement was for buildings that are 20,000 square feet or larger. This is in line with what Aspen is doing. Their program is managed by CORE, so you know we're starting to kind of understand a little bit more about what that looks like. We don't have a lot of buildings that meet that threshold, but it's very interesting to see what they would be, energy they would be using throughout the year. So Council did adopt updates to the Renewable Energy Mitigation Program, or REMP. Basalt's had this program for many years. REMP requires property owners to offset exterior energy uses. You know, we're talking about pools, spas, and fire pits through on-site renewables, and in some instances allowed to be fee in lieu. So the amendments considered what those rates were. Fees were adjusted to better reflect the actual mitigation cost. The updates also brought in some items to the program that were not formally included, and we're talking things like heat tape. It also updated the method for calculating snowmelt, which aligns with the method that is also used by our neighboring communities, so we have some consistency between our codes. And a REMP calculator was created as an online tool for public use. So I think that's you know, a pretty effective way to try to be as transparent as possible about fees. And lastly, I'll just add that an exemption pathway was created that allows a request to be made to the building department for an exemption of any one of those items. The building official would take in their request, understand if it's considered to be a valid request, if there's proof of an undue hardship, and or an inability to accommodate that requirement on site, it could be considered, and it's kicked to a SBR review committee for additional discussion. Go on this next slide. So concurrently with the adoption of the 2022 SBR amendments, Council adopted by way of resolution a roadmap to net zero. This is an aspirational document. It provides a pathway through code adoption cycles and energy efficiency measures to achieving net zero for new development by 2023. that is in line with the town's climate action goal, which is actually 2030. 2031 is pretty darn good. Let me go to the next slide, please. So really, the 2023 SBR amendments that are being proposed currently came out of, as a result of staff having worked within that newly adopted code. You know, it was found that there are areas that could really benefit from some minor amendments, some tweaks. Generally, overall, it's related to formatting, clarification, simplification, with a few other minor changes. You know, to give you an example, the definition of remodel was actually added, which is, in that definition, interchangeable with the already defined term alteration. But we realized we were using those two terms, and we wanted to make sure that that was very clear. There was proposed to remove specific energy percentages in order to just reflect Energy Star standards rather than those specific percentages, which is a nationally recognized program. It brings language in line with the 2021 IECC. Again, that's on our short-term horizon to be adopted. And another example, you know, we reformatted the beginning of what is Exhibits A and B within your packet. They were found to be, those items existed both as bullets at the beginning of these sections, as well as found within text. So it kind of becomes duplicative. It simplifies the information really just to have it in one location. Bulleted is an easy way to receive that information. So just to conclude, you know, and we can get into any questions you may have, but sustainable building regulations, you know, they really do get into more, they get at more than just carbon reduction and meeting our climate action plan goals for the town. They also produce, you know, more efficient buildings. They're healthier for our residents and for people that are working in those buildings. They produce long-term cost savings. There's an equity factor at play here as well. And we have a plan now to divest from fossil fuels, which really gets at that resiliency piece that I think we're all interested in pursuing. So with that, I'm happy to see if I can entertain any of your questions.
Alrighty, so let's get a little clarification on this first. We're only talking about the parts highlighted in yellow in our packet.
That's correct.
So we're only asking questions and commenting about those particular parts. So Rob, do you want to start?
Well, that actually seems fairly weedy. And I do have some questions, but not about just the highlighted parts.
So we can talk about our questions about the non-highlighted parts after we take care of the business tonight.
Okay, it's not at the work session, it will be after we do this.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so we'll make a request.
I'll pass for now, thanks.
Okay, good. Kyle, do you have any questions?
What's a package spa?
That is kind of what they call them, the pack and play, the kind of you can walk into a store and walk out with a spa. Not that I could carry one, but it's something that could just be kind of set on your deck.
Versus has to like be put in the ground?
Well,
What's a
sometimes-
non-package spa then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I did one in Aspen that didn't come insulated,
Okay.
so if they were smart, they would have gotten rid of it, bought a packaged one, dropped it on the deck, and been good to go. Instead, I had to build a 2x6 wall around it, spray foam insulate it, and then reseal it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So the package ones, you buy it, all you do is
Yeah.
plug it in.
Yeah, close it.
That, yep,
Gotcha.
plug and play kind of thing.
That's it. Thank you.
Hey, Cindy.
No, I don't. I'm looking forward to the discussion though. I think I'll
Okay.
have questions during
All
that.
right, great. Katie, do you have any questions?
I'm all set.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. First one is the online REMP calculator the same as Pitco's and Aspen's? Is it the same thing, or is it a different Basalt-only thing?
It's similar, but it has been created specifically for Basalt.
Okay, that's what I want to know, so, okay. And also, and this is slightly off topic, but I do want to ask, why didn't we see the 2022 part of this?
I
That's,
was curious about that too.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. I don't know
okay.
the answer on that.
Yeah, we don't need an answer right away, but I'm kind of curious about that. Okay, then this is not a public hearing, is correct?
True.
Okay, so we can go right to questions. Katie, do you want to start with questions? Not questions, comments. Do you want to start with comments about this?
Yeah, I don't have anything to share right now.
Cindy, comments?
No, not at the moment. I mean, it seems fairly common sense to me, but
Okay. Kyle, do you have any comments?
No.
Rob, do you have any comments?
I do have a comment, and that you might be best situated to answer
Yes?
or respond. I mean, the package seems somewhat onerous if you're a homeowner trying to do a phase 2 model alteration. And so I'm curious, how easy is it to get all this package done for submittal? Or is it, you know, you hire an architect?
It takes a building professional to do it. There's
Mhm.
consultants who just do this.
Not architect necessarily. there is
Architects
a
do, some
submittal.
of the ones who just do it are architects, but not all architects are specialized in this.
And so what kind of cost are you looking at on, you know, either, you know, the guy that's remodeling a bath or a bedroom in Elk Run, or, you know, a guy that's building his house in Willits? Like, what, if you're doing 30 houses, you know, I totally get it, it's what we should do, and then you have a staff and a team that handles that, but for the one guy that's just building his house, what burden are we placing on him?
It's not insignificant.
Yeah, it's a really good point. There is a free education and outreach with our SBR person. So she'll walk people through it. We also have a checklist that you walk through, so you know, the average person doesn't necessarily have to try to read the code and figure it all out, although there absolutely is that element of kind of gaining onto it. But we have Amanda as a resource for the typical homeowner to check in with and ask, what is this and where do I even start?
And she will walk through a project, you know, she has done that with even a commercial finish, where she'll walk through and she'll say, I see you have this, and she will let you know, we need this many points in this area, we need this in this area. So
Okay.
she's, you know, a really great resource to try to guide people through this process.
And what sort of cost are we looking at, you know, on a small remodel or a new construction?
So what is going to trigger, we were trying to be really sensitive to folks that are trying to do very minor additions, you know, and the thought was, you know, maybe they have the floor area available to transform like a 500 square foot garage into living space. That's kind of something, you know, maybe a little bit more typically seen. So it's still within the building footprint, but it counts as FAR. And so we didn't want to penalize that person trying to work in that smaller amount. 750 square feet is the trigger point for SBRs to kick in.
Level 1, phase 1, whatever we called it? Okay.
Yeah, type 1, yep.
The question was, how much cost are we looking at the
You know,
project?
we have done a cost analysis. I didn't bring that information with me. That was part of our discussion with council last year. I certainly could bring it forward if you do request a work session, if you'd like to have some more information on that.
The effort was to dial in the options so that you could choose certain things that were maybe new construction or new technologies that were absolutely gonna cost something, but we're gonna get the payback over time. And so ultimately, the final amount was 5% of your building costs.
Going
The
in.
person you would hire would cost you 5% to
No,
figure this out?
the improvements.
The improvements.
So
improvements,
you're looking
right.
at 5%, with a certain amount of that being paid back over a period of time.
Right.
Okay, I mean, people ask us, you know, how much it's gonna cost me, it's nice to have a number.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
Absolutely.
That's the effort, and, you know, I think it's been really interesting just listening to Amanda, having gone out on site and been to different houses. There are things people don't necessarily, because this is all so new, they don't realize they're getting points for things that they've already done. So sometimes it's overwhelming, seeming like, oh, I have to get all of these new points, when actually they might already be halfway there. And there are always ways to get kind of the final points. She's been really great about figuring out less expensive ways to meet the points and helping kind of guide people that way, because certainly our goal is to make it work and not to burden everybody and make it a painful economic experience.
Amanda Poindexter?
Correct.
Is she staff now?
No, but she's a
Consultant,
she's
okay.
under contract.
And then you mentioned we have a review committee. Has anything gone to review committee?
It has not.
No, okay.
It's still pretty new.
curious sort of how often it gets challenged or need to be explained.
I don't really expect it'll get challenged a lot because there is that criteria, you know, where it's gotta be, you gotta be able to prove you cannot accomplish this on site, or, you know, the ask is so onerous that it just creates a condition where the development just isn't feasible. So I think that, we're trying in every way, shape, or form to work with folks to
So
make
it's
this
generally
happen.
settled on staff level before it would get to review committee?
Yeah, Mitch and Amanda generally meet with whomever has questions, and we've been lucky to meet with people in the design process to talk about what the options are, what the impacts are. Yeah, and I would let you guys know too, Basalt we're not the first to have sustainable building regulations. We're probably the 30th city in the nation, so we've learned some lessons from other places, and there's certainly things we're probably gonna come back and need to amend as we learn, like, ooh, this one doesn't work for anybody, you know, and we're open to hearing that as time goes on.
There's only 30 communities in the country?
There's
Big ones.
probably,
Talking about like
yeah.
San Francisco and
Okay.
big ones.
But some of it, if you just adopt the IECC, which is part of the IBC,
Mhm.
then you automatically have nine-tenths of this
Mhm.
or more. And that, a lot of communities do that.
Yeah, one reason we do the SBRs is there's certain things, like we know that not every building in Basalt is is sited well for solar. And so you have to have some alternatives there. That's kind of an easy example.
Good, thanks, Bill.
Okay. I have a couple comments, because I'm gonna limit my comments to just the parts there that are identified. And one of them is the insulation on, again, this will be in the weeds, but this is just the one thing I got that's highlighted. The insulation on sloped areas under snowmelt, or the areas under snowmelt. If the area is sloped, you need to be able to have an average, because if it's all insulation, it's got concrete with the snowmelt in it, the concrete won't stay. It just sloughs off. So you need to be able to have certain parts that are not insulated that go right to the ground to hold the concrete from. See, if you're gonna do an entryway to a parking garage, not something that happens in Basalt a lot, but it does happen some. Those are relatively steep, and so if you pour concrete on that with all the insulation, which is plastic, all the concrete just winds up at the bottom. And it's really difficult to hold it. So if you could just make that R10 an average, then you can fix it in some way so it doesn't just slough off. It gives you a little more flexibility so you can actually get it done. And my next comment is about these changes specifically. If these changes could not be retroactive to projects that are under a permit already, because I have had that happen in Pitkin County with this code, and they made it retroactive to projects that were already permitted, and it causes, for like large affordable housing projects with lenders, discomfort of biblical proportions with banks, because things get much, much more expensive with some of these changes. And so there's like, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars could be an additional expense, and people start pointing fingers, and they're usually at people like me. So that's why I say this. How could you let this happen?
right.
How come you didn't know? These are codes, it's your job. So anyway, if we could be very clear about how these things work, then, anyway, those are my only comments.
Okay.
Anyone have any additional comments?
Yeah, I had one more question, actually, while we were just talking about potential costs of this. Sarah, you mentioned equity at one point in your presentation and how these would help get us more toward equity. Can you go into that a little bit more and just describe how?
Well, you know, the thought that's you know, been discussed is more around, I'm thinking more about tenants. You know,
Yeah.
these things, it's not, I'm not necessarily talking about the developer. I'm talking
No, I
about
was
the people
thinking
that are
about
going to
the
be moving
tenants,
into, like, you know, units and living there for a while. These are units that will be healthier for the tenants to live in. They will be, you know, better air sealed. They're gonna be spending less on their heating bill, and electricity overall, that kind of thing. So it gets at that piece. Also, if things are EV ready, you know, it's kind of like, well, gosh, you know, you think of someone, you wanna buy, you know, electric vehicle, and you're thinking, well, now I gotta figure out the lift to get like a charger, all these different things, you know, it's all these pieces. So kind of, it helps to level the playing field a little bit of what's available to different folks.
Okay. Yeah, I understand all of that. I guess my one concern would be if it is adding some sort of significant cost to developers, then they will pass that along to their tenants.
That absolutely is a concern as
Yeah,
well.
that's gonna happen.
The utility savings will never catch up to the increased rent amount for the additional development.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that your last question? Okay. Do we have, someone who would be willing to make a motion that includes my minor little change?
And your change would be the non-retroactive to projects already,
No,
or the
the-
sloped, because that.
The slope part, the other part's an administrative portion of this, so that's not actually in the code
Right.
language, how it's administered.
But this is the part of it, okay.
Yes, so the administration part is just my comment to staff.
And I had a question on that. Is there a slope that begins to be troublesome?
Anything over, say, 5%.
Okay.
Because usually those parking garage slopes are 10%. So it gives you some wiggle room there.
That's the angle of repose for concrete, 5%.
No, when it's on something really slippery, I'm just guessing, you know, but it's like, it gives you some leeway to,
Something to look into.
yeah.
Okay.
So we're looking for a motion to accept or to recommend these changes to town council.
Consider.
And these are a courtesy referral, too.
So, motion to courteously refer these changes to town council, including the suggested changes by Mr. Marin.
Okay, we have a first. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a first, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Before we go, I would like to request, since we never saw this before, I would like to request a work session with P and Z about these things, because this is something I particularly deal with every day. And there's some things I see in here that have massive consequences for affordable housing projects. And I have some comments about that area specifically. So if council would allow us to talk about that, that would be great.
Sure, we will work on that.
Thank you.
We've had that, we started that discussion in the past and tabled it to a future time where we could discuss, and exactly this is what it was. It was affordable housing and efficiency and appliances and things.
Yeah, and this is, it's the same thing, and I think we really need to have this discussion in a work session format, so we could work out a framework on what these things are and how to deal with it. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see, we are at introduction to Willets Lane process. Whose is that?
That's mine.
Okay.
Visioning session.
Visioning session. So, parts of this might look familiar to some of you, but part of the work plan for 2023 is creating a plan to make improvements along Willets Lane. And so we've been going to each of the citizen boards and getting general input. What is for example, what is the Public Arts Commission vision for Willets Lane? What is the Green Team's vision? And what is Post's Parks, Open Space and Trails vision for this area? And so we're just kind of coming in and giving kind of an overview of what the plan could include, and then kind of looking for some general feedback. I'm going to walk you through the general area just so everybody has the same information about it. while I'm kind of walking through it, you might consider what the pedestrian experience is, what it is to be a driver in this area, what the recreation experiences are, what it is to be a neighbor in the area. There are several new residential developments coming into this area as well, and just kind of thinking about those things, as well as the opportunity for Willets Lane to really link and be the beginning of a stronger connection to Old Town here. So we'll go to the next one. So just kind of getting our bearings on what area the plan will encompass, starting with a darker red that's near Highway 82 in the Aspen Basalt Trailer Park. And then we kind of move down through towards the Basalt Industrial or Design Center, which gets us to that first green star, which is DeRocks Park. We all might know that more for the raft put in and the river access there near Hooksburg Bridge. And Hooksburg Bridge, just FYI, is in Eagle County. It's not in the town, so we can have aspirational goals for that, but that's unfortunately outside of our purview. Where the red starts to change to yellow on this slide, to the left of that is CDOT property. I've invited CDOT to be part of the discussion on Willets Lane. They are actively looking at redeveloping that property into housing for their staff. And so while that property is outside of town limits in Eagle County, it certainly will have an impact on what happens over in this area. Moving further up, where it turns yellow, we're gonna have some new affordable housing at some point in time. We don't know what the timing of that will be. That was recently approved near the lofts. The next little green star is a little park some of you may know about, which is referred to as Sunset Park. It's just another kind of public access to the river, a couple seats, nothing too major. And then it moves up the way past Willets, or more towards Willets, and Taka as we know it now, and sort of ends at that roundabout where we turn to either go to Starbucks or City Market. So that's the general area. So just kind of going through the existing conditions, and as you're kind of thinking through maybe your aspirations or your visions for the area, pedestrian connections and bike connections in this area could be important things for the future and enhancing some of our goals. There is a path, probably the wider path here, near the Aspen Basalt Mobile Home Park. And then we'll cruise on to the next one. And then just a little highlight of DeRocks Park and the boat launch ramp there. And we anticipate that actual work and plans for the DeRocks Park will be some sort of a separate function, although it'll be integrated into the plan, but there'll be a serious undergoing there about what kind of measures should be taken there to help with the erosion control and to generally improve it, but not improve it too much that we blast through capacity. So we're aware of those things. And then just kind of going through DeRocks Park a little bit more, we know that there is some nice trail and traffic separation here, but of course I don't have a picture there of what happens when there are rafts there, so that's a whole other discussion to be had. The kind of the corner of DeRocks Park there where the wood fence ends, and then it's pretty clear here where you can see the change from the sidewalk to a different color sidewalk is basically where the town line ends at Hooksburg Bridge. One of the elements to this plan will be working on some improved signage. We may be looking at the end of this year, the town will be undergoing in general an entire wayfinding signage improvement campaign that'll touch both Willets and Old Town. So maybe this will address signage at our parks, maybe it'll be focused on trails, but there's a whole way to go about that, and just kind of improving that as well. And then there are some other opportunities. We know we have Taka, the medical center, and the potential for a new childcare center built across the street from Taka. And so just how those uses will interact with, or could be enhanced, or what we want to do there as that feel changes from the residential area into that commercial area. And of course, another item here in general is traffic calming. The photo that's in black and white is existing conditions at the intersection of, I think, Meadow Drive and Willets Lane. And then the little color photo is just a photoshopped image of a traffic calming installation that we may consider, or something to that effect, or could be its own conversation as we go through the plan for this area. What kind of traffic calming devices are we interested in? How many? And that sort of thing. And maybe they'll all be different as you go through different areas of the lane. So this is the intersection of Lewis Lane and Willets, and of course that's Taka on the left. And to the right, behind the stop sign, where there's kind of basically a vacant lot, is where there could be a potential daycare center or something to that nature. And this could be a fun place to do something where the traffic calming might be painting the intersection. You have something there. You know, this is where BPAC might come in and have a neat idea, or one of the other groups, or anybody, frankly. So just kind of fun ideas out there. So steps for this is that we'll get your feedback today, and then we still have the green team to meet with to get kind of their feedback and visioning. Then we'll be drafting an RFP for a professional planning services firm to come in and kind of help run this entire planning effort, because there'll be a lot of public outreach. There are a lot of stakeholders to be involved. And what may come out of it is doing some temporary installations, like the top left picture is, I don't know where that's, I can't even remember where I borrowed that from, but that's, I think, from somewhere on the East Coast, where they did a temporary installation to try this type of crosswalk and narrowing of the intersection for traffic calming. Phase 2 might be, you know, kind of redesigning what we learned from those temporary installations and doing something different. And then phase 3 will be figuring out the final plan and figuring out a budget to actually do the things. So that's the quick story on that. And we would love to get your ideas, comments, concerns, and just kind of gut reactions from here. We'll be back for a more thorough visioning session, so this is not a one-time chance to have comments.
I sense Heather Henry showing up.
Could well be.
Rob, do you want to start with comments?
Yeah, we just sort of glazed over the intersection, the up valley intersection of Willets Lane and 82. I think that needs a little more attention. Starting now, going forward, there needs to be a right turn lane coming out of Willets onto Highway 82.
Yeah.
As it is now, traffic can back up past the trailer parks at school drop-off time in the morning. And there's almost enough room, but there's not, so people jump up on the sidewalk and drive around and drop back on, and that's not ever a good thing.
Point.
Also, when you're turning left at that intersection, it's left and straight, and so people stack up to go straight behind someone's making a left-hand turn, and they go around.
Yeah.
And then all kinds of confusion happens,
Yes.
especially to pedestrians.
It's a horrible intersection for pedestrians. And yeah, I would love to get feedback on that.
Yeah, I mean, you have a Basalt, you have a parking lot for the buses across the highway from density housing. You're running a lot of people across the highway. We went through this right here, the intersection right here, right? It's winter, it gets dark at 5 o'clock. People are wearing black and they're crossing the highway. It's scary. Oh, the Eagle County Bridge, the Hooks Bridge. this picture we had up there, the sidewalk's about 2 feet wide, but it is a 16-inch drop down to the road.
That's my comment as well.
Yeah.
I always worry I'm gonna fall over it with riding my bike.
Yeah, for sure. And if you had your Burley, then you probably can't be on it. So it would be a great time to coordinate with our friends in Eagle County. You know, that bridge has a mid-river abutment, right? Does that one?
It's what?
Does it have a, is it,
Underneath, you're done.
oh, it doesn't, no, but it's too low. I think that was the problem, right? Didn't water hit it in the big flood year?
Maybe, but we can look into things.
And when you said Eagle County is gonna think about housing over there on their,
CDOT.
CDOT, sorry, on that land in Eagle County, any idea what they're looking at?
Yeah, they're looking at they're looking at duplex or multifamily two-story housing all along the front, closer to the street, so that they move away from half of that property is in the floodplain,
Yeah.
so that they're building only in the non-floodplain area. How many units, I don't know yet, but,
It's Eagle County, so we don't get any say in the matter.
well, not only is it Eagle County, but since it's CDOT, it's really, they have state authority, and they don't necessarily have to go through any land use process.
Yeah, their location and extent, so they can just do whatever they want.
Wow.
So I've met with them, and they're interested in participating, but have been clear that we're not gonna have a ton of ability to impact their designs.
But that's why they're taking the trailers away from the CDOT trailer park?
They're trying to combine maintenance facilities, so they may have, and they're negotiating all this, so I don't know where it's gonna land, but they're trying to negotiate maybe a bigger maintenance facility up valley, because they have a couple of, sort of randomly located housing units up valley, that they wanna locate everything in one, all the housing in one area, and all the maintenance together in one area, so that their staff can go to different locations, and something to that effect makes it more efficient. So I'll keep you updated as I learn
Is that
anything else.
something that's gonna happen in the next year or 2 or 3?
I think their goal is in the next 2 years.
Thanks, Bill.
Kyle, do you have any comments to make?
My only comment would be if we would consider limiting heavy vehicle traffic from Willits, that they use that to get into the business center. So you see a lot of 18-wheelers, especially, I mean, mostly it's a lot of FedEx trucks and then also lumberyard trucks. And if it's just accessing it from the west side to limit how long they're on that frontage road or that back road.
So you're saying just only access it from the up valley
That would be just the shorter,
through, yeah? That's a good
is
idea.
then, especially because getting around that roundabout for an 18-wheeler is not good. It's technically 2 lanes.
Mhm.
So then they pull in, have to get both lanes, and it gets to be a mess. I have to go. Jade, I gotta go. Thank you guys. Sounds good.
All right, thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle. Cindy, do you have any comments to make?
I like the idea of the signage. I recognized that picture from Jackson Hole, and I biked around their bike paths this summer and noticed, like, made note of that signage was really helpful. Not only the distances, but the times.
Yeah.
Is that it? Done?
Yeah.
Okay. Katie, do you have any comments to make about this?
Yeah, I have a few comments. One, I think it would be good to maybe explore line painting on the bike path, just because there's a lot of people who are using the bike path on Willits Lane to access the Rio for road biking or the Glacier Trail system for mountain biking. So there's people who are biking really fast, people who are walking their dogs. So it'd be nice to create some separation. I like the idea of the painting in the street just for traffic control. There's a really cool kind of street painting in Boulder in the Goss Grove neighborhood that could be cool to look at, and it was a community effort, so I think that would be cool for Willits to have some like community component in that. And then, yeah, just kind of echoing on the point about the sidewalk at the bridge where you get, I don't know the street name, but where you get to the Glacier Trail system.
On Hooksburg, yeah.
Yeah, that intersection definitely needs some attention, just,
Mhm.
yeah, for bikers and getting over to that other area.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple comments to make. First one is with the signage and the bike paths. You know, the signage is great if you know where you're going, but since this is a tourist place, a lot of people don't. And I live there and I walk on that road a lot, and there's a lot of people who are really kind of lost with the rental bikes.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a really important, very important thing, and probably one of the least expensive things we can do.
Mhm.
But I think, you know, it's very high priority. And since I walk on that street like once a week at least, I don't think the speeds are really as bad as people think they are. Because sometimes I'm like on a scooter that goes, the fastest it goes is the speed limit. And, you know, I'm usually passing people. So most people who are on that street aren't really going that fast, though there's a perception, I think, that they are. So like when it comes to traffic calming, I think a lot of it is just more aesthetics and safety than it is slowing cars down, at least on that street, not like it was on Valley Road when it was just that straight shot. My last comment is about if we do traffic calming on there, a lot of times when municipalities do traffic calming, they're not really well coordinated with public works and snow removal.
Mhm.
And it just goes bonkers in the wintertime. And so I'd like to see whatever we do, if we do something that's either removable or public works signs off on it, because they'll just wreck it anyway.
Mhm.
So those are my big comments. Also, will we be seeing this again? We probably
Yes.
will, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think, basically, I'm just taking the input from all of the groups to draft the RFP and make sure that, it has everybody's kind of thumbprint on it, on what are the most important issues that get addressed. We think, you know, we kind of have an idea of what they are, but I didn't want to assume in case there was something that came up that is new. But these are really good. So what will come back is in the future, we'll put this out to RFP and you'll be updated on who bids on the project. And then they'll come in at some point and give you an update on what the process is gonna look like. And get more feedback and actually have more constructive, probably more bit by bit along the lane, and less of this kind of generalized overview.
And also, if we do have an RFP, it'd be nice if someone from our board is on the selection committee for the RFP, just because this is high profile for us.
Okay?
All right, next item, Confluence Park.
Yeah, let me please share my screen. Just a quick second.
You get to hear from all the planning staff except Alec tonight. He's out of town, so.
Yeah. This is a work session and presentation item related to the concept plan to improve the intersection of Basalt Avenue and Two Rivers Road, directly adjacent to Confluence Park and 7-Eleven. You can see the photo of it here on the screen. There was a plan developed in 2015 and 2016 for the intersection, but it wasn't implemented. This is the plan that's in your packet. It is in the 2023 work plan for the town to solidify the planning for improvements at this intersection and for this area. And staff thought it made sense to go back and dust off the plan that was from 2016, kind of as a starting point. And so we thought we would kind of present the intent of the plan that was done in 2016 to P&Z and see if P and Z's got other thoughts or other concerns and issues that revisions to this plan or potentially a new plan for this area would have to address. So just to briefly go over what the plan was in 2016, it was really to kind of narrow down this access area and better define the pedestrian realm that comes off the Emma Bridge and goes to that intersection where all the school kids in the morning cross Two Rivers Road to get to the elementary and middle school. Currently, this is a wide swath of asphalt that doesn't really differentiate, I'm sorry, Rob, I'm marking up here, doesn't really differentiate the pedestrian realm from the vehicular access into 7-Eleven. And so the plan that was done in 2016 really narrows that access down so that there's really a narrow kind of access in for vehicles, and there's less of a conflict with pedestrians, and it gives pedestrians more of a cue on where to walk to get across to the access across Two Rivers Road. It also, in this plan from 2016, includes better defined crossings. Right now we've got painted crosswalks that are basically not visible anymore. And then this plan from 2015-2016 also included a better defined sidewalk along the Confluence Park access and over to the crosswalk at Two Rivers Road. Currently, the asphalt just kind of ends in that area, and there's no actual sidewalk or pedestrian way. In addition, this plan would better define the pedestrian realm going along Two Rivers Road by providing a sidewalk access that goes all the way across the 7-Eleven access on Two Rivers Road here. It also narrows that access down. Back in 2016, when they first drew up this plan, there was discussions about how 7-Eleven and this commercial complex was still going to get deliveries, and the thought was this is still their primary delivery access and entrance off of the Two Rivers Road on the Up Valley side. But it does provide a better pedestrian way across that access point. And then this plan also included a chicane of sorts and a flashing sign for a mid-block crossing of Two Rivers Road. If you ever are driving this way in the morning when the school kids are crossing, you get a lot of them coming down here after they've either visited 7-Eleven or don't want to cross here. And so you get a lot of them kind of jaywalking across, and it becomes difficult for motorists, and there's kind of a conflict down here. So the thought was back in 2015, 2016 to do kind of a mid-block crossing as well. So those were the general improvements that were part of this plan. Back in 2016, the post committee as well as P&Z reviewed this plan and thought it had merits to it, and it just wasn't implemented at that time because there were other improvements in other locations that were implemented. But we're starting to look at this again with the post committee. They took their initial look at it 2 weeks ago, and they're trying to figure out whether to just kind of make some revisions to the plan that we had here, or whether to start over with a new designer and do an RFP. So we'd like to hear kind of P&Z's comments potentially on that, as well as whether, you know, you've got some feedback on this plan, and if there's some additional concerns or issues you think needs to be addressed in this planning process. So with that, turn it back, you know, on initial feedback on this plan, initial feedback on whether you think this is a good plan to dust off and just make some improvements to, or whether, you know, we should start over with a new RFP for design.
Rob, would you like to start?
I don't think there's a whole lot of other options you can do, you know, I mean, you work on this and tweak it, sure, but it doesn't seem like it makes sense to blow it up and start again, because you're gonna end up pretty much with something that looks very similar to this. My take on it, you know, it's been a while since my kids were at the elementary and middle schools, but there was a police officer there every morning, probably a really good person to talk to see what he needs to facilitate traffic flow through there. And I always thought one of these, you've probably seen them, that it's a perfect place for one of those crosswalks, right? I mean, how fun would the kids have across the street? You know, the 3D, you guys have probably
What
seen
is
these,
it?
right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you Google 3D crosswalk.
Oh, yeah,
but,
yeah,
I mean, in front of the school, to me, is just the natural place. for
Yeah,
kids
those are
coming
cool.
across it.
Yeah.
So, and it can't, it's relatively cheap fix versus, you know, pouring concrete and digging up a road, but it would definitely slow people down.
Yeah.
I will, maybe I'll just, that's an easy segue. In the initial post-presentation of this plan, some discussion about doing some maybe temporary, low-cost installations, because we're certainly not gonna pursue construction of any of this plan in '23.
This could be
But that
BPAC,
could
it
easily
could
be
be,
done,
yeah.
Are those stickers?
No, it's painted.
Oh, it's just painted?
Mhm.
Cindy, comments?
I agree with Rob that I think this plan, I think we would be better served with this plan tweaked as needed, rather than spending the staff time and potential expense of doing an RFP. Not to mention that a firm's costs to make another plan would probably be substantially higher at this point than we paid in 2016.
Katie?
Yeah, I would agree with Rob and Cindy on that.
Yeah, I also agree on that. I voted on it last time, and I thought it had all the same merits it did then. Though I'll revive a comment I had from that time, was that we should do something in the Confluence Park itself, like just a path and a bench and a trash can, because it's just full of styrofoam cups and cigarette butts. And most people don't even know it's there. But just nothing big or fancy, just, you know, a crusher fine path or gravel path. Because it's kind of hard to see where you even go into it. It just sort of looks like a thicket.
Yeah, it could definitely be something on our overall signs and wayfinding that could be added into the
Well,
mix.
Or maybe just thin out some of the brush, because you don't even know, it just looks like kind of a wall of leaves and sticks and stuff, so I don't know, but I'm sure there's something very inexpensive that you could implement with just Public Works.
Yeah, we've done that a couple times in the past. We've worked with the Roaring Fork Conservancy to get kind of the right balance, but I don't think it's been done in a couple of years.
Yeah, I think it just keeps growing back, because
Yeah.
it's real wet down there. That's all I've got. Anybody have any other comments?
Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteer is another option for their.
Okay, commissioner comments and staff updates. Does anyone have any comments?
Which one first?
Well, I said commissioner comments first, so let's do that.
Okay.
Do you have anything, anybody have anything to add, or something that they have a burr under their saddle about?
Saw a big truck at Fisherman's Park yesterday, today. They've taken those boulders.
Oh,
I'm not sure what they're doing there. We did get an update from them on the Whitewater Park improvements. They have done most of the improvements that they were gonna do. They have most of the boardwalk in from the Whitewater Park to the boat ramp. They were missing a couple sections there. And their Fisherman's Park improvements are pretty much done as well. They didn't identify that they were removing the boulders, but if they're doing that, that's great.
Well, if they don't, we could probably find some uses for them.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of a next phase of improvements on the restroom side that are yet to be scheduled. So they might be related to that, we're trying to find out.
I have a comment.
Yes?
I was following in the newspaper, I guess last week or the week before, about the conundrum over what will go in Stotts Mill, and since it's too small for a child care center. And I started thinking, well, why wasn't that vetted before it was approved? Why didn't people ask if it's big enough to fit a child care center? How short-sighted. And then I thought, oh, we just did the same thing with the grocery store. You know, that's supposed to come across the street. So when it comes to that, perhaps, and this is serious, that child care center could go across. Something to think about. Because I don't think we're gonna see grocery store over there. But I mean, you were one of the people who, from your family business, said it's too small to really host a grocery store, which is what I've heard too from professionals in that industry. So given that that space might be up for something at some point soon, why not consider it as the child care center that can't fit in Stotts Mill?
There's also a lot in Willits. We just talked about.
Right, but that's not built yet. This is gonna get built.
Well, yeah.
Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
I thought the problem, sorry to interrupt, at Stotts Mills was they couldn't find an operator.
Yeah.
But the operators, the reason they gave, my understanding was that they said the space is not large enough for a child care center.
So there are a couple of competing challenges over there is that it was approved in 2017, I think, so it's the business model that a lot of daycare providers are hosting now, whereas they might have focused on having a smaller 2 or 3 or 4 classroom business model. Now there's a preference for having more, where you can have more classrooms and more kids and trade your teachers between to help support. So the business model has changed a little bit since then. Some of it too is just we've heard a lot about fees and associated fees and the cost of building out the space. That being said, council directed staff to go back out one more time and solicit potential operators that might be interested in the space, so we're working on that. So to be seen. Yeah, it is an interesting conundrum for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we have had a couple bites since that meeting. So,
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so
My kids were growing years and were desperately trying to find another facility for growing years instead of the double wide trailer that they're in. So you'd think that this would be perfectly adequate, or at least better than what they have. It's too bad.
Yeah, well, for like a growing years, for example, where maybe in their infant room, the teacher goes for lunch break, then they're in such close proximity to their other classrooms that a teacher can go over and cover the lunch break, and it's just a lot more challenging if it's across the highway. So that was like an interesting impediment for some of our existing providers, so we heard.
But just, maybe as a bit of background, during the Stotts Mill approvals, we did have the Child Care Coalition look at it and a series of daycare providers, and they thought a 4,000 square foot space would work well. But they've, as Michelle said, changed kind of their business plans since then. So.
See, I remember conversations about the traffic patterns in there and the kids getting dropped off, but I thought that we solved it.
Yeah,
That's an issue.
Katie, do you have any comments to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, staff updates?
Sure. You may have read in the paper or heard of a project called the Lightning Bolt, which is a sanitation district project to improve some of their carrying capacity. That final approval is actually at the sanitation district tonight, but I would say highly likely they're going to approve it. It's kind of a formality at this point. And so construction on that is likely to start on February 20th. This is interesting because the lightning bolt is named that because the shape of the pipes are that of a lightning bolt, the way it's laid out, is across from Riverwalk.
Yeah, Riverside
River-
Plaza.
Riverside
where
Plaza here, so
Skiko's building.
the Skico building and just before the bridge over the river towards the library. To get to the existing sanitation line, it's 15 feet deep, so there'll be a lot of construction there and impacts to traffic for 2 weeks, starting February 20th. Part of that project is also updating some lines over here between Free Range and the bus stop. So there'll be traffic impacts over there as well. And then the final 2 weeks of that project, much less impacts because the deep utility work will be mostly done. But we'll be updating you, and there'll be updates to the community about that as well, and some things there. That being said, that project should wrap up in the middle of March. Work on the spur out here, starting the Midland Streetscape project will start the middle or end of March, hopefully, and we'll get that going. And that'll be mostly contained to just this spur area, so traffic going through town should not be affected at the beginning. For anybody that hasn't signed up yet and is interested in having regular project updates, you go to letstalkbasalt.net and sign your email up on there, or check the webpage whenever you like. Lots of updates coming out from there. And then in mid-March, we are looking at the possible start to the new restroom and bus stop facility across the street at the park. So that should be coming up. And then lastly, the band shell in the park. Construction on preparing the site for foundation and concrete pouring will probably start late March, early April. So both of those two, the restroom, bus stop facility and the band shell will have minimal traffic impacts. I mean, probably not much that will be that noticed, but they'll be there. So all being coordinated, but lots of fun stuff coming up. That's the update.
Okay, I want to add one thing. I think March 15th, I think that's the day, Habitat is having an affordable housing seminar up in Aspen, which I think would be of interest to many of us here, so just wanted to put that out there.
Are they 4 again?
One would think they're for, yeah,
Yeah.
that's their business.
Have you ever been around, what's her name?
Gail Schwartz?
Yeah.
Yes, she's very, adamant.
I have one more thing I wanted to add too. I forgot, I jotted this down. With the, as we all probably know, with the Inflation Reduction Act, there is supposedly a good amount of money going toward sustainable practices and things like getting rebates for new appliances or installing a heat pump. And we're in the process right now of needing to replace our dryer, and so I've kind of thought, oh, I got to go on this, research project to figure out what's out there and how to get it. And I saw something, the Colorado Sun recently published a story on how to try to, get your mind around all these possibilities. So I think it could be useful for the town to try to publicize this information too. If it's like a public service announcement in the paper or on social media, or just, since we're putting so much time into figuring out the building practices, I think we could all use guidance
Yeah.
in how to take advantage of this money that's out there.
Absolutely. It's really interesting you say that. The Green Team approved funds for that exact reason,
Oh,
to do
okay.
public outreach and to share it, because it is kind of a cumbersome research project right now to find all the different rebates. So
Yeah,
we're working
it's
on getting
confusing.
someone to put it all in one spot, at
Okay.
least. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Or have it on the town website, maybe. Yeah. Okay, good. Great to hear.
How much do you get?
I mean, it depends, I think, on what you're doing.
I mean, for the dryer?
I don't know, I haven't found that information yet. I literally just started thinking.
You're welcome to call us, too.
Okay, see what you found out.
We'll find all the places, because we know at least a handful of them to start, so.
Yeah, well, and we'd have to convert from gas to electric too. So, and that could be potentially costly, so I'd like to find out what's out there.
They built their south side house with gas dryer?
What was that?
You're south side, right?
Yeah,
They built it with a gas dryer?
uh-huh,
I'm surprised.
yeah. I didn't even know that. I thought we had an electric dryer because of the plugs into the wall until Todd pulled it out, you know, to check on what was going on. He's like, no, there's a gas line here. But we would have to get electric work done in order to get the kind of outlet to actually plug in an electric dryer, so, yeah. I've only lived in the house since 2006 and never knew it was a gas dryer.
You know where the water main shut off is? You should know that.
What's it, where's our fuse box?
You should know that too.
That I do know.
All right, any other comments or questions? No, if not, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have first, we have a second?
Second.
First, second, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all very much.
We're going to be meeting regularly again?